As always, first, it's my take. Now, resources sharing is a serious subject of political and governance debate. The reason why Kenya's election is viciously competitive is essentially because of the perverted conception that resources sharing and regional development is intricately linked to political power. In itself, that is a consequence of the political history, where for the better part of our independence, resources were allocated in favor of those in power, but to the detriment of those outside that orbit. Now, the resultant effect is skewed development, which has spurred resentment and at worst led to violence, as witnessed after the bungled 2007 presidential election. It is precisely for this reason that in changing the constitution, the pitch was on the following. One, changing the governance structure, moving away from the centralized to a devolved system. For a good measure, the current constitution, in creating 47 counties, also provided stipulations on resource sharing, that at least 15% of the audited revenue should go to counties, that another 0.5% allocated for the equalization fund that is earmarked for the marginalized and at least or least developed counties. And two, dispersing powers from the presidency to independent institutions such as the Commission on Revenue Allocation, Controller of the Budget, Auditor General, to deal with resources allocation and utilization. In this context, the objective was to eliminate political biases of the past, where the president and powerful ministers used their offices to allocate resources to favor their regions. It is not lost that the president, the deputy president, and the cabinet secretaries are no longer members of parliament. This week, members of parliament from Mount Kenya convened a meeting in Naivasha to deliberate on development for the region. A perfect objective, because that squarely is part of their responsibility as elected leaders. And leaders, just like all other Kenyans, have a constitutional right of assembly and speech and expression. However, it is disturbing when members of parliament use such caucuses for blackmail and intimidation. It is perfectly all right to question the criteria for resource allocation and in fact even make suggestions on changes where there are flaws. But it is a different ballgame rather when the discussion is about herding the president to skew resources to develop a region because of his heritage. Now, members of parliament are involved in budgeting and resource allocation. They meet ministers and interrogate budgetary proposals before they are tabled before Parliament by the House. Thus, it's incumbent on them to ensure that they allocate resources to the regions and developments they want, which courses must be guided by other principles of prudence, fairness, and equity. In the words of Thomas Jefferson, he is the principal author of Declaration of Independence and the third president of the United States, were people to mingle only with those of like minds, every man will be an insulate being. My guests tonight, Isaac Mwaura, Alive Wahome, and Junet Mohamed. My name is Ken Mijungu. The hashtag for tonight, as always, is Sidebar at NTV Kenya at Ken Mijungu. SMS feedback line is 20868. Welcome to our show. Sidebar begins right now.
Mount Kenya region must claim its rightful share of development in the country within the remaining 4 years of this current administration. That we have identified development priorities for our region, and in particular with regards to the following key issues: matters regarding water, roads, electricity, and agriculture.
All right, gentlemen, Isaac Mwaura and Alive Wahome, you were there. So I'll begin with you. Isaac. Or let me begin with the lady. You identified these areas that you need development. We have seen a lot of development in that area. We can look at them one by one, but there are several. But the question is, how did you arrive at the fact that you feel this part of the country, Mount Kenya region, is marginalized?
Let me first start, Ken, by saying thank you very much for having us here. I've listened to your summary.
Okay, the editorial.
And introduction, the editorial. I think that's where the debate starts. Okay. Already the editorial is completely biased and out of line, out of order. I don't know who did the research for you to come to the conclusion. And you know, an editorial is a very serious statement. And I hope that does not lead my brother to thinking the same. You have said that because the region has produced the presidency, it has therefore received skewed development.
No, that's not what we said. I can tell you what we said about that.
No,
That's
no,
not what we
yeah,
said.
yeah.
Yes.
You know that we have used the presidency, or the region has benefited
Yes.
from the fact that the presidency has come from
Three
there.
successive
Three successive
Yes.
presidents to get skewed development, or to ensure that they have better and more development than other regions. Secondly,
We didn't say that though, but you can continue.
the statement I have listened,
We have it. We have
that
it,
we
yes.
should then, as members, advocate for equity, fairness, good governance in discussing matters allocation of resources.
Yes.
Let me first say that the two key issues that led to this discussion for us, and that will guide this discussion from our perspective, is representation, and that representation, we are talking about fair representation in terms of our vote, and our vote getting value for what it stands for. Two,
Okay.
that therefore will lead to looking at what population numbers do we have. And therefore then we are asking, can we have resource allocation primarily be determined by the population? Because you allocate resources to the people.
No, but you just said your vote matters, so
The
primarily
vote-
on the vote,
The
not on the
vote
people.
is produced by the population.
Okay.
Okay?
So if you produce
You
8
cannot,
million
you
votes,
cannot have a vote without pro rata numbers in terms of population.
Okay.
And for us as a region, there is the modern marginalization
Yes.
because it is presumed first we have produced 3 presidents, so automatically
development goes
the
back
development
to the region.
goes back to the region. That obviously means that then the presidency has not been using the principles of equity, fairness, and that is where the narrative
But when you
has
say-
gone wrong since independence.
Alice,
and
just,
has
let me just
therefore-
stop you.
Yeah.
When you say that your vote must count, you must get value for your votes, and you come back and talk about producing president.
I will
you
come
know?
to that.
Yes.
You know, the fact that we have produced the presidency has no relation to the projects and development that we have gotten. Indeed, we expect that our development should be determined by the number of people, not just the vote, the number of people that we have in our constituencies, in our region. And that has totally been ignored to the point that we are now looking at other parameters. For us, population should be index number 1. Then you come to maybe equality or equity in terms of equal sharing of some balances. And it is obviously presumed in our view that we should use something like between 40 and 50% by index of population.
40 to 50%
yes,
of?
Using population numbers.
Okay, using population.
When you are sharing. And
Okay,
then, of course, there down, you use the land mass, equal share.
I'd like to split this
physical,
with Isaac, because Isaac was also at the meeting. The marginalized. How did you arrive at the fact that you think that region is marginalized?
I will give you some facts, and first and foremost, I want to dismiss your editorial with the contempt it deserves, because it serves to advance a certain agenda that really is really out of order. Ken.
Yes.
President Uhuru Kenyatta got 8.2 million votes. 73% of these votes came from the Mount Kenya people and the diaspora. That is accounting to 6 million votes. And this vote accounts to 45% of the total presidential vote. Let's start from there. When you talk about matters development, and you go to the resources allocated to the 10 Mount Kenya counties, they receive a total of 29 billion shillings out of 314 billion shillings in the ordinary shareable revenue, division of revenue bill. When you do per capita, Mount Kenya region people receive only 6,000 votes, 6,000 shillings, against a place per person, against a place like Garissa, where they receive about 53,000.
Based on allocation?
Based on allocation.
Okay.
And a place like Mandera, I was there when Oparanya was making the announcements about the census in 2009. It was very funny that in Mandera there were 3 men against 1 woman. Now this is a region that is polygamous in nature. How do you end up with a census that suggests that people are polyandrous? And you want us to sit down and accept it doesn't actually matter who is the leader of this region. As long as resources are not adequately shared, this is the modern marginalization, where people have sat down and said, can we slow down the horse so that the donkey can catch up?
Which people are these?
We look at the formula, the revenue sharing formula. We do not allocate resources based on landmass. People don't represent landmass. And let me give you further figures. The 6 million voters have got 50 constituencies. The 6 million voters have only 10 counties. So you have 50 members of parliament in the National Assembly. You have 10 senators. And then, of course, there are those of us who are nominated to represent special interest groups, and, of course, with the consideration of the region. Now, the issue is, my dear brother, if you look at the number of constituencies, the Mount Kenya region has got an average of 88,000 voters per constituency, while the national average is about 40,000. A place like Garissa has got 6 constituencies with a total voters of 163,000. And then you have a place like where I come in Ruiru, 160,000 voters with 1 MP and 100 million shared equally for the CDF. Is that really fair?
Okay, I understand where you're coming from. I'd like to bring this question to Junet, because tomorrow if, for example, a president who does not come from that region is president, perhaps we can hear this also raised somewhere else. But are they crying wolf? Do you think, because I'm looking at representatives, I'm looking at an elected member of parliament, the several elected, he's counted more than 50 minus the senators, right? And you're looking at them and you're thinking, aside from the fact they've had the president, the representatives have been on the ground. So are they crying wolf?
Thank you, Ken. First, I want to agree that there's no harm in having a caucus. People can meet differently in regions and other to discuss their interests and other issues. And they were in order to meet and discuss their issues of coffee and their population and their people. That is in order, because even other regions meet to discuss their issues.
Yes.
So that's number. Secondly, the other issue I want to bring out is that they are talking about modern marginalization. I think the debate now that comes to the table is modern marginalization versus historical marginalization. Which one takes precedence? People are discussing that we are being marginalized now in a modern way. But there are people in this country also who are discussing historical marginalization that have not even come nearer where they are. So that issue also must be looked at. But if you look at this critically, and there were 3 presidents from that region, but people are still complaining about marginalization, it clearly tells you that you don't need to have a president coming from your area so that you get development. So it's the reason why they should have voted maybe for Raila. Maybe development will have happened in Nyeri, better than the way it is now. But that didn't happen. So I agree with them that they have modern marginalization, but where I represent, for example, I am discussing historical marginalization. There are issues which are historical since independence that we have not gotten. Water, roads. You know, you'll see roads being launched everywhere and all over. But you'll never see roads being launched in where I come from. Maybe we are considered to be part of Uganda, because, you know, Mijungu was taken to Uganda. So the next thing is, yeah, maybe Migori is going to follow next. So let us separate the issues.
Okay.
We cannot condemn them for meeting. They can meet. I totally support that meeting. You see, even us as a region, we meet and discuss our issues of fish, our issues of cotton and other things. People from Northeastern meet. They have their own parliamentary group meetings. People of Rift Valley meet most of the time in the Western Hotel, every Tuesday, I think. People meet in different places. But now when you meet in your caucus, you have to know that.
Okay.
You have to bring that now caucus, those issues that you have caucused, to the national table.
It's not lost to me 2 things. The president is a president for the nation, yes, not one region. Isaac Mwaura has mentioned the votes and broken it down to even the constituency levels and the diaspora. You have mentioned the votes, and it's the same thing we read at the editorial that you are both disagreeing with. It looks as though the only reason the president needs to look at the region is because of the number of votes. That's what it looks like.
Let's first correct you. One, I want to agree with him first that all other regions have been meeting. we have been very careful not to appear like we are complaining or crying foul. But we are no longer going to be apologetic. We are not going to be apologetic, but we'll be decent and modest about our way forward and about our discussions.
Okay.
All these other caucuses, his caucus, I think they have a Luo Nyanza caucus, there is pastoralist caucus, there is various Mombasa caucus, Kamba caucus, and they have been meeting. We don't complain. But whenever our region meets, we are told this is ethnic, the Kikuyus, the Gemas, and it becomes a very big issue.
Who tells you? Who are these people who speaks about it?
It's all over, the same people, including people like Junet. And I'm glad today he has seen the reason why we should meet. The first agenda when they meet is development, appointments for their people. How are their regions being represented? I think those are just the discussions that we had. Obviously, people read politics from that meeting. But our region, they are very happy and they have been complaining. Our voters have been complaining. And let's separate the presidency. Let's separate Uhuru from the issues that we are discussing.
But when you mention the vote, how do we separate him?
President Uhuru is in charge of the executive. So either way, whenever any region wants to discuss development, even whenever they visit him, the first agenda is to the president. This is what we want for our people. And that's what we are saying. But we are also saying, look, Mr. President, you have called us twice as a region to mobilize the people. And whenever you are doing your whenever you are doing the campaigns, just like Raila did, and any other candidate who wants presidency, they will have a lot of promises. Call it water, electricity connection, sorting education, poverty eradication. These are the things that people who voted and believed in that agenda so that they can actually put a vote with the president. So there is an expectation.
Junet, I see you
and
want
for
to
us,
speak,
we are not, as a region, we are not going to wake up and come and discuss about Junet as the first agenda or
But
his
it's true.
region, because they have
agree.
representatives.
Yes.
It is for the president and the executive to discuss largely about the national agenda. For us, this particular meeting was for our region, and that's what we said. We are not apologetic. We are people's representatives. Of course, we are national members of parliament. So when the agenda comes, let him bring his perspective. I bring my perspective. Then we shall agree in the revenue allocation what should be used.
When did this conversation begin? Before I go to Junet, the conversation about thinking that there's a regional balkanization. When did it begin? Is it something that you've had for a long time?
You know, why did Gema come together? I think some of the leading issues that they were discussing were still representation and actually development. And actually there was a very big agenda in terms of development for the Gema people, including business models
So
that
this
they were
has
coming
been a
up.
discussion
So
that
this
you've had.
discussion
Okay.
has never been away from the people. But this particular parliament has actually started a bit late.
Okay.
Last parliament did try, and we actually did have several meetings.
The idea I get, Alice, the idea I get is you simply crying wolf because you feel you voted for the president and you're not getting value. That's what I still get, and until you convince me otherwise.
No, you see, Ken, this issue...
By the time we leave here, we shall have convinced.
No, it is very good that the Mount Kenya people think that they're being marginalized by their own government. But they have to look at these things holistically. As much as they're caucusing as a region, which I said I agree with them, I don't agree also with the Honorable Mwaura's assertion that such and such a place, we don't count landmass. What? Landmass is part of the country, unless you want to give it out. So there's a formula in the law on how to share revenues that you must follow. That is why in the United States, you have 2 senators from every state. States which are very small and states which are very huge. They're equal. You can't say because I have the numbers, because if you bring numbers here, I'll tell you, people of Mount Kenya, many including the trees in Aberdare Forest, are being counted. But now, if you want to have equal numbers, just state the right figures. You back up your argument with facts that are possible. There's one thing I had you saying that we generate 60% of the GDP of the country. Yeah, that's far-fetched.
We'll talk about the GDP
we'll
after
come to
the
that.
break. We'll talk to
But
that,
the issue here is, do Mount Kenya people have a right to caucus and bring out their issues as people from Mount Kenya, that is yes. That I agree. But do they want to overact it and, you know, behave as though the president is supposed to attend only to their area? That is wrong.
And they made that clear.
And the ministers they are talking
I think,
about, the cabinet secretaries who are from their area, are not supposed to be serving only Mount Kenya area. If you are the minister for
And we haven't
infrastructure,
said
I think it's very unfair for Junet to speak on both ends of his mouth. The issue is very clear. We are talking about official figures. So I don't know why you are saying here that people counted trees and forests.
Which official figures?
But at the same time, you cannot convince me how one woman can service three men in terms of Mandera County.
No, it is
the
the
truth
other
of the
way around.
matter is that people went to court, and those are the figures that are being used to share revenue.
No, you got it
and
wrong.
let me tell you,
It is one man servicing
Junet,
three
we are
men.
not going to be apologetic about being from Mount Kenya.
No.
We are not going to be apologetic about asking for value for our votes. We are not going to be apologetic to ask Uhuru Kenyatta, who was primarily voted by Kumera Duraku from Mount Kenya region, to give his rightful leadership when it comes to our region.
I agree.
That one we are not going to back out. And let me tell you, the Mount Kenya people in the 10 counties in diaspora constitute 35% of the Kenyan population.
Oh.
So we are not going to sit down and say that we will cede our ground, our people to suffer. Poverty is high in our region, and because we have produced the presidency, we are supposed to shut up and become very grateful. The presidency is only one. And we are talking about people getting resources that can empower them. If you look at the public service, we are disadvantaged. No. If you look at the teachers, we are disadvantaged. Because, no, listen.
Don't
because,
go that direction.
No, we will go. We will go. I can assure you. Don't look at the appointments. We are talking about the real public service. The issue is, when we talk about our region, people want to say, when Kikuyus meet, they are tribal. When the others meet, it is dual. You are a member of a dual. It's development.
When they meet, it's
How comes when you people meet, there is no hula about the media? We will start. I am the secretary of the caucus, and I am telling you going forward, these votes must count now for Uhuru Kenyatta being president, and we will not sell ourselves to anybody just like that in 2022. We must also get our rightful share. The same way we negotiated for this government, we will also negotiate from whoever that we support in 2022. 45% of the presidential vote cannot just mean nothing.
I agree.
Have you considered, Isaac, that when we have another president from a different region, there will be such arguments? And have you considered what you will feel at that time sitting on the side Junet
We
is
will
sitting?
work to make sure we influence who is the next president.
You know,
to be in government.
That's why you're going.
the resources,
Yes.
and I started by saying the resources, when they are put together, you have to look at the figures of the population. Who are you giving this money? You have to say it is so and so in terms of numbers. This county is given this money. You see, we have used other parameters, and that's what I said, instead of population, and that's where we have lost as a region, because the people, the numbers of people have become secondary to the landmass, have become secondary to historical marginalization that he's talking about.
Correct.
You know, that has become secondary. So what does that do to the region that has a population? You deny the people who are there equal share, fair share that we are talking about, so that you give other people, as Mwaura said, so they catch up.
Exactly.
We don't. So we are supposed. Our people are supposed to stand still, not
So that
get.
others can catch up.
No, but
Yeah.
you-
So
you
what
sound-
do you do?
Alice and Mwaura, you sound like you are intimidating. It
are
sounds
not
like you're pushing the
intimidating.
president towards doing something for the region because you
If
voted
the
for
president
him.
is
Because
shying
that's what
away,
he said.
if the
We are
president is
actually
shying
refusing to
away,
be intimidated.
Mwaura, if the president is shying away from putting money into this region
Yes.
because he's supposed to have come
He's
from that
intimidated,
region,
actually.
we are saying the president belongs to all of us.
Exactly.
And he's a national figure,
Alice.
so we are not going to
and
say...
also-
And it's
and
very big-
hold
Junet.
on, the representatives of our region cannot be you. It
No,
cannot be the president, because the president actually represents, as you rightly said,
The
the
whole
whole
country.
country.
Yes.
So it is for me to speak for the people of Kandara, where I still don't
Correct.
have water, and we are bringing all the water in Muranga to Nairobi, so that Nairobi people can have water fast when Muranga people wait. That thing will not happen, continue to happen. We do not have our electricity connection. We are here, 50 kilometers from Nairobi. We are at 40%. Go to...
Why don't you blame the local
Let
leadership?
me ask you a
No,
question.
the local-
Let me put a question.
Exactly.
Okay, let me hear this.
If you want,
Let me-
blame the
let-
local
let me
leadership.
say this.
What is the
and
question?
You
Junet
see,
should tell us
Ken,
whether he represents
no,
the people of Migori or
yeah,
the
I
Landmass.
agree. The people who are supposed to
Yes.
speak for the Mount Kenya people are their leaders.
Exactly.
That we agree.
Yes.
But if we base everything addressing the president on issues of the parliament about the number of votes you have given him, what happens to those of us who didn't participate in the second election?
Yes.
Who have no votes to talk about?
I'm aware you are going to meet the president next
when
week.
he
So
was
you
asking
see-
for votes, what did he tell the people?
So you see,
What did he
we
tell
cannot-
What will you be discussing with
him? We have to take a
as
break.
much as we
Yeah.
support
Yes.
the idea of caucusing, as much as they are right and they should address the president on issues that affect their people. But I think the issue must be now made broader, where we are going to discuss modern marginalization of Mount Kenya people and historical marginalization of Migori people.
A good point to take a break. Modern and historical. Let's take a look at some feedback before we take this break.
We cannot treat
Isaac, we are taking a break.
We cannot create modern by treating historical.
We're taking a break. We're coming back with the discussion. We'll finish it. Let's see what you're saying on Twitter, if there are responses. All right, we have from Deritu Mureidi. If members of parliament focus on making Maram roads in the village, ensure there's water, enough food, and simple amenities that make life much easier, we wouldn't have a single region marginalized, in quote. It's the simple things that matter. And John Dago, if the Mount Kenya leaders are complaining about modern marginalization, then the rest of the citizens aren't Kenyans. And the final one, do you have one? Right, Njoroge Shege says the Gamer House should reason widely, support their issues, but no need to reason on the basis of tyranny of numbers. Blame the poor leadership from the region. The fish rot from the head.
Who is choosing these tweets?
All right, on that note, we take a break. When we come back, we still want to discuss this, plus the 60% that you said you contribute to the GDP. Let's take a break. We're back in a moment.
We know that Mount Kenya region contributes over 60% of our country's GDP. Yet only 20% comes back to its people. We have therefore called upon the Commission of Revenue Allocation, CRA, Parliament and other relevant agencies to ensure that the region gets its fair share of resources when it comes to development and implementation of the second generation formula.
And welcome back. All right, let's ask Isaac Mwaura. You were also at that meeting. The simple question, how did you reach the 60% GDP contribution to Kenyans?
What are your figures?
No, you give me your figures. I have my figures. I'll
Mine,
demonstrate
you
shortly.
know, Mijungu, you know my figures are 60 versus 20. What are your figures? Put it on the table, then we can discuss.
60 versus 20,
Yes,
break
what
that
are-
down for me.
No,
Yeah.
I am not going to break down any figure. Give me you as a
I just
counter
want
this.
to, I'm not going to bring figures. What I want to do is I want to discount your figures and I want to show Kenyans that the 60% is impossible. But just tell me how you arrived at
First
that before I
discount
do
the
it.
figures, because
Okay.
how do you tell me to tell you my formula, yet you have not given me yours?
All right, let's go ahead. Let's take a look at this graphics. Let's see the first one here. All right, that's the GDP for the whole country is 80 billion. That's the source is from the World Bank. Gross domestic product, 80 billion shillings, about 80.79. I was told by economist Kwame Owino, it's about 80 billion. Let's see the next. The GDP contribution in this country, that's what they say is 60%. That's about 48 billion US dollars contributed to the GDP of the country. A total GDP of 80, they do about 60% comes to 48. That's the source Mount Kenya Parliamentary Group. And then the final one, let's take a look at this. All right, this is how the composition by sector of the GDP of this country. Agriculture contributes about 35%, industry 17.6%, and service industry also about 47.7%. That's from Index Mundi and CIA. That's the World Bank fact book. All right, Mwaura, that's what we see. Now we see agriculture, industry, and services. Let's talk about that and the contribution in each sector from your area, from the region.
Wow, wonderful. My dear brother, do you even need to argue? The figures are just out there.
No, just break it down for me in terms of how much you contribute to agriculture, service, and industry.
Let me tell you.
Yes.
First and foremost, you are giving me figures from Kwame Owino. So basically, my brother, you are not giving me... There's a pinch of salt. So I would not want to respond to the figures of Kwame Owino.
But that's Institute of Economic Affairs is a fairly credible body, Isaac.
That's it.
It's fairly credible.
That's it. But
Yes.
I want to tell you very clearly
Yes.
that Mount Kenya region is very active in agriculture. Mount Kenya region is a leader in the industries.
Service industry.
And it's actually, we are the biggest in terms of the service provision, even in mortuaries, even in other forms of development. So when you ask me about 60% of the GDP, we are not talking about the 10 counties. We are even talking about our population in the diaspora. Why are you questioning about our industry? We are the ones who are running the port of Mombasa. We are the ones running the Nairobi
So
economy.
you are out
We
of-
are the ones
out
who
of
are
the
running the
county.
Nakuru economy. So we are not talking about people who are pigeonholed in the village somewhere in Githunguri. We are talking about the general activity of our people in the economy.
The traders,
Yes.
the business
Who are
people,
now
the
suffering
farmers.
because all their containers are locked at the port because of the increase of the CBM, the clearance of KRA. That is why the economy is not performing, because our people are inactive. That's why our people are unemployed. So these figures are real and to the point.
Alice, how did you get to the 60%?
Take 47% from the service industry.
Okay.
Itself alone.
Yes, but this is not for your account. This is
No,
general
I know,
contribution to
the whole
GDP.
country.
Yes.
Put Mama Mboga there. Put Matatu. Put Boda Boda. Put farmers. Look at bus drivers. Look at every other small trader countrywide. In every city in this town, you will find that the people we are talking about, both at our local area, the region, plus the diaspora, will form more than 55% of that service numbers of the industry. So I would give ourselves, from the 47, I will give ourselves a whole 30%.
A whole 30%?
Yes.
One region with a
Ye-
population
ye-
of just under
not
4
one
million.
region. I think you are discounting. If you
No,
go
but
to,
when
if
you
go
focus
to,
as Mount
if you
Kenya,
go to Kisumu,
If
if
you
you go
focus
to
as
Kisumu,
Mount Kenya, that's what
go
we're
to
looking at,
Kakamega,
Alice.
go to Mumias,
Our-
go to
our-
Mombasa.
Our population
Hold on.
cannot be 4 million.
Kisumu, you
Kisumu-
actually
no,
you had
Kisumu.
you even
But
got
that
that
is even
change,
less than the number of
throwing
votes.
away people from there or pushing people out from there. Start Kisumu, come to Eldoret, come to Moro,
Come to Lodwar even.
come to Lodwar, go to Loitoktok, Ken, Mijungu. I don't know, and I'm sure you have traveled. Go to Mandera. We are the ones cutting stones in Marsabit, in Mandera. Go to Mombasa. Come now to the whole of Central.
You give me
Come
the
to
impression
Kiambu.
there's no other
Then Nairobi,
person in this
we
country
had,
doing
I
anything.
said
It's not
55%.
giving the- yeah,
I
it's not the
said
whole share.
55%.
It's 40%.
Of the service industry in particular. And I want those figures to actually be looked at. People with a proper lens. Agriculture.
No, I think what's
other
happening
than
here-
the Rift Valley. These people don't even do farming.
you see-
They just go and get, and I'm saying this with great respect. How much farming is the Nyanza region actually doing? They are not even getting the fish farming right.
You see-
and they should be supported. The government should invest
Now
money.
she's talking.
Yes.
Our industries collapsed, and we're not doing fish farming because of bad policies from successive governments, which he was part of it. But now to come back to the point, is 47%, and you are saying 30%, you are...
Yes.
That
They leave
cannot-
for the rest of the country 17%.
No, that cannot be correct.
It cannot be correct.
That is far-fetched.
Yes, it cannot be correct.
But what we can say, you see, a country cannot have a GDP for people contributing 47% in the service industry, and you tell me you are doing 30%.
You see the population
These are
is, start from
you
the
know,
population.
let me tell you something. I know you are bargaining,
No,
but
just-
don't bargain more
just
than
for
what belongs to
information,
you.
just so that you can
You bargain
you
with
can,
facts that can
so
support
that you
your
can
argument.
develop your argument. Start from 35% population for the whole country.
Exactly.
Including the
That-
children, they are doing servicing. 35,
Including-
even if I give you
But they-
35%,
including the
including the
trees,
school,
They
including the
consume
trees we
diapers.
talked
including
about.
the
They consume
children,
milk.
including the children,
Take-
they are doing service.
Take 35%, get 65%.
They are generating
And the
money
fact
for
that
the
these people are not working.
No. You see, Mijungu,
Yes.
I agree that they are supposed to speak for their people so that they can get development. But you cannot base your facts on baseless facts. You have to support your argument with facts that are there in the records.
Share us how
by
many people
the
in your
institute
place.
of the institute.
What percentage of the Luo Nyanza is in the service industry?
Very many.
By the
No,
way,
what
very many.
percentage do you think?
What do
is-
you call service industry?
Ken Mijungu, let me just ask
See,
a
I
question.
mentioned.
Yes.
I
No,
said
We are here
matatus,
on
I
national
said
television
bodabodas,
discussing
I said
about-
small traders,
about
small
what-
traders.
Alice, Isaac is
We are
speaking.
here on national television discussing about what Mount Kenya region is demanding.
Yeah.
And I mean, why? Why? We have not made any other region not to demand their rightful share.
Correct.
And as I said,
Now we are talking.
Junet Mohamed
Now he's talking.
is
been
they are meeting the president next week, informally I'm aware, to go and also discuss the issues. The president met the people from Ukambani the other day with Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka. They met the Luya people. What is it that is so wrong with us sitting with President Uhuru Kenyatta to discuss about our issues and justifying our case? Let me tell you, the meeting we had in Naivasha was a very technical meeting. It was one of the best meetings ever for the region, where we analyzed facts, not emotions, not political propaganda, and what we are saying here, we can rightfully back them. Of course, don't expect me to come here and reveal all our secrets. As the secretary of the caucus, I have a right to give what you would want to hear. But the truth of the matter is, we are more than determined to ensure that our people cannot be marginalized simply because somebody is brandishing to us the presidency. In any case, we would want to be secure whether we have a president from our region or not. And that can only happen through devolution. And if I look at the figures, Junet Mohamed, you would actually support me. Because the same issues we are discussing with you here affect the people of Luo Nyanza, they affect the people of Western, they affect the people of Kisii. I was discussing with my brother, Wafula Amunyini. He had the same problems in Kandui, where he has over 200 schools with 100 million, and he cannot just meet the demands. These are issues that
you asked me why we would be discussing this, and the answer is, when you look like a region and you're pushing a national president to act based on the votes, you're forgetting that he's a national president. You're forgetting that there are areas that did not vote for him. You're forgetting that he took oath and said he'll be president for all. So if we start giving the president pressure from all sides, how will we even function?
It is not about the vote. It's also about the population. We are 35% of the economy.
Just 1 minute, Mwaura.
What's happening? You see, yes. Let me tell you, Mwaura, you can put all the demands that you want to the president. But you must know that getting development or getting resources at our counties and constituencies is a constitutional right. It's not a favor that the president is going to do or the deputy president. It's a constitutional right that I must get development in my area because I'm also a taxpayer, just like you are.
That's true.
Everybody in this country pays taxes and in return gets development. Let's agree that point.
That's okay. That's okay.
But I don't want you also later. I support your caucus, and you can put as many demands as you can. If the president meets them or not, it's not my business. But when we also put our demands, don't say, oh, you didn't vote for him. Oh, why are you putting this demand?
Actually,
I don't want to hear you in national televisions making noise.
In the spirit of the handshake, we want everybody to be given their equal share. As all what we are asking is our equal share. In fact, we are not asking for anybody else's share.
In fact, your statement yesterday, you supported the building bridges initiative.
Exactly. We even said we support the president here in fighting to unite the country and to fight the fight against corruption.
You have talked.
Yeah. So really.
Yeah. But these demands you're putting.
I know, gentlemen, we have spoken about.
They're too much.
We have spoken about this, and I just like to do a small calculation that will show us if indeed the 60% is true, because as you say, it's a contribution to the GDP. Now let's take an example of you doing the 60% as a region. Let's divide this by the GDP of the country, which is about 80 billion.
80 billion.
Yes. Let's just do the calculation and see where you come in. So if we do this, that's 0.6%. That gives an average of 48 billion, right? 48 billion. More zeros. All right. So 48 billion. Let's assume that the population of the region is about 4 million. Let's assume that. And then divide this.
No, that would be wrong. 4 million is not right.
What's the population?
The population of the region cannot be 4 million when voters of Kiambu are 1.1 million.
Of the Mount Kenya that you represent?
Yes.
The number of people you represent?
The number of people.
Let's even use your number. What is the number?
Let us not say that the people of Mount Kenya are 4 million. Kiambu alone has 1.1 million voters.
No, the ones you represented as this caucus, as the Mount Kenya, because we did not talk about the wider central region, did we?
No, it is the whole of the wider central region.
Give me the number. We'll still do the calculation with the number.
We are talking about the 10 counties from Meru to Laikipia and Nakuru.
Which comes to about how much? Because we have to divide
Nakuru
to the last, because
alone
GDP
has got 940,000 voters.
Because GDP also involves income.
No, Mijungu, your figure will not work.
It is 35% of, say, 40
No, but you see, you are changing the figures that you originally gave
us.
us.
Do 46 million.
I told you
35% of that.
Mwaura,
you're changing because it's
yes.
okay.
Ken,
Alice,
I told you for 35%
yes.
of the Kenya population.
46 million as at now.
Yes.
As per the
Alice, let's work with the figures you first gave us. If you want to change the figures on the table, that's welcome. If we divide this, it comes to around 1.2, right? 1.2 million US dollars. Now, 1.2 US dollars, that's about 1,200,000 Kenyan shillings. You don't tell me the income per household of people from your region is about that annually. It's impossible. So that calculation of 60% is
No,
impossible.
your calculation is not that is wrong.
No,
Mount Kenya,
you have just changed
no,
on the table.
Mount Kenya people are not 4 million.
We are like
How can 4
we are
million
close-
people vote for 6
You
million?
have changed. Now that
We are going
you've
to give
changed,
you
No,
figures.
no, no.
now
Ken.
that you've changed,
And
we are
you
in
know,
agreement.
Ken,
No, you
Ken.
cannot advance your own formula and conclude with your own
Ken.
answer.
Now that you
Take
have changed the
35 what is
60%, we are in
35%?
agreement. Now that you've changed
Ken.
is 1.2 because you
No,
will be
no, no,
talking.
no. Ken, Mount Kenya region cannot be 4 million. How can 4 million
voters
people vote for
themselves
6 million, for
are
president
more
for 6
than
million?
The
From
figures,
the-
Really?
I have asked you
Can
even
you
for
do
the figures
the
that you use.
35% of 46 million? Then you'll get the actual votes of Mount Kenya people, Gikuyu, Embu, Meru.
That's okay. You're changing
Then
the
you can-
figures
you can-
on the
you can use
table.
that for
We have
calculation.
discounted that 60%
I think
is
I'm going to use
impossible.
I'm going to use my phone
You know-
to
you know-
do
you know-
those
you know-
calculations.
Okay, let's
you know-
move on
you know,
with this
Ken,
discussion.
You did
Yes.
not ask us to come with the exact figures.
Yes.
I have just
But
told
when you
you
hold the you
our
held the press
population,
conference yesterday,
we talked
you
about
must have
60%.
The GDP.
Yes, of the GDP. 60% of the GDP cannot be contributed from one area.
But
That is
GDP,
discounted. It's
please do
impossible.
not confuse the two. GDP is not equal to household income.
No, but it's
You
part of
cannot
it.
confuse the GDP of a
I'm not
country
confusing.
to the house.
To the household income, because household has got 2 people. Some of them have got single mothers who are quite a number in
Those
our
are two
country.
Do you know
different
And you
GDP
cannot
even
have
includes
less than the
expenditure
number
in
of
the
voters
households?
to be equal to the number of the
Economic
population.
purchasing power. Do you know it includes that, Isaac? So it's impossible. We have discounted
No,
your
okay,
figure
your
of
formulas are
60%
they are
was impossible. So
You know-
your
you know,
figures
you
are
know,
actually
if you wanted, you can give us the population in terms of 35% or 46 million. And then we start from there.
I
We
think
told
that
you
is
we
done.
brought to the table 8.2 million
votes. Yes.
Okay? And 73% of that vote actually was from the region.
Yes.
73% of that. What are we talking about? Voters alone. We are talking about close to 7 million from the region. Mount
Not 6
Kenya,
million.
Mount
You have
Kenya.
just said 6 million.
No, I'm saying
30 minutes
close
ago.
to. I am saying
Not everybody
close to.
voted.
Yeah.
I have agreed with you that the figures must change on the table because the 60% that you proposed at that meeting is impossible. Let's discuss now the other issues.
By the way, Ken,
Yes.
don't mislead viewers. Your
But I'm
formula,
not the one who said 60%.
You cannot come and say 60% and out of 100 or whatever, and with the base of that we are 4 million voters from Mount Kenya. Just take your
No,
calculator.
not million voters. It's
Yes,
not about million
not only
people.
people. If you
Million-
go to your online, I am there. You just do what is 35% of 46 million. That figure, then you can now discuss. That is when we'll be talking. Because when you talk about 60% of the
I
GDP,
think we can progress
talking
the
ab-
discussion.
I want to progress, but I needed
Yes.
to give him an opportunity to finish this because the first question that I asked Alice on this table was give me the figures and tell me how you arrived at the figures. That was not forthcoming. He told me to bring my figures and I said I will discount you 60% and we have effectively done that. So we're in agreement that regardless, Isaac, of the number of votes that you present on the table, you cannot push the president to start acting on that regional.
I will challenge you and tell you, go and do your mathematics. Go and look at the GDP per county, add it, and also consider the Mount Kenya
But
diaspora.
why? And you said 60% contributed to the national
No,
GDP.
But that's okay.
Let's even.
So I
That's
cannot go
okay.
per county.
Then you come to
let's
the figure of
even look at
60%.
50 members of parliament from the region that was represented in Naivasha.
Okay.
And that's everywhere where we have a member of parliament,
Including Lamu.
okay, speaking in the language of that region. Whether they are in Rift Valley, whether they are in Laikipia, or even Coast, like he's from Nyanza. What we are saying, 50 members of parliament within only 10 counties, from 47 counties. From that itself, you can see a fair share of marginalization in terms of representation. So that even gerrymandering or meandering
Constituencies.
and murdering the constituencies was done effectively to reduce the representation, to affect the representation of our region negatively. It is time to correct that. And the same process
So you want every
was
location
also
of your place to become a
the,
constituency?
look, I have
if that's the
100.
case, so be it.
I have 100 voters. In fact, if my voters were picked properly, because the last election was 85,000 voters, I have over 200,000 people in one constituency. We
But there was
produced.
when the constituencies were being increased, there was a criteria that was used.
The criteria
And
was
there
skewed.
It was no, it was
The
not skewed.
criteria was skewed.
That's what they are
By
faulting.
regarded. That's
That's what
what
they
we
are
are
faulting.
faulting.
It was not
represent
it was
the
not
number,
skewed.
But that's why I
It was
say it.
100,000
Hold
people
on,
per
Junet.
constituency. And I remember
Junet.
constituencies like Othaya and Nyeri were protected constituencies. They never reached
Junet.
the threshold of
Yes,
100,000.
I remember.
It's on record.
Junet,
What are you talking about,
no
Bana?
amount of
But I can support you.
no amount of
If you talk to me
discouraging
well.
of this debate will stop
Mount Kenya from
Mount Kenya
pushing this.
from pushing this
Okay.
agenda.
Okay.
By the way,
It
if
has
that
happened
were to
for
be
far
the
too
Isaac,
long.
just let her
And in
finish.
fact, you said
Yes.
it is possible that we should blame the leadership that has been there. We will even take responsibility for that leadership. But it is time for this new leadership now, for
Okay.
this
The
time
current
to act, the
leadership,
current to now act and rectify what we have looked at. Because if I have 200,000 people and my CDF is the same as his CDF, the same as somebody with 15,000 voters, and I have 85,000 voters, the last register, and I get 100,000 at par at the beginning. And thereafter, the changes, because of population, are like sijui 0.000.
So what count is only
you'll
population?
find that people with 3 wards are getting the same amount when I have 6 wards.
It's
So
okay. It's okay.
you go to
So it's only population that counts.
no,
Nothing else.
I said, and maybe you are not listening because you really want to defend this thing. This thing is wrong for you. This
It's wrong
thing
for
is
us.
wrong for us.
Yeah.
This thing is wrong for many people. But there is some certain regions that have benefited unfairly
Unfairly.
against the others. Because
Like which?
we talked about fairness.
Like where?
I've just said some constituencies, for example.
Like
If you
Dujis,
use that,
like Dujis.
and they are in
Why?
With
you know,
13,000
with
people,
13,000
and yet you
people,
have just given
yeah.
us your formula of
And
100,000
he has
per constituency.
160,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Roiro we have
The
160,000.
last time I checked Dujis, it had 52,000 registered voters.
Junet,
52,000.
it is
Since
population.
I'm telling you,
That is population.
my friend.
That's
Let
not
me-
registered.
That is not registered voters.
Dujis
no,
cannot
no.
have
Okay,
52,000.
The level-
Dujis
You
know
cannot
where
have
Dujis is?
52,000.
Yes.
The commission,
Where is it?
The commission
Where is
of
Dujis?
But
It
it cannot.
cannot.
No, where is Dujis?
How, no,
It
it
can-
cannot.
can.
It is the
Let-
form.
How
It is
can
now the
Dujis
Garissa
have
Township constituency.
No, how can Dujis
Wait.
have 52,000
Ken.
voters against somebody who wins with
Just
30,000
journalists.
votes?
It doesn't matter.
No,
It doesn't matter.
no.
But
Where
the
do
fact
these
of the
other
matter
voters
is,
go?
you
That
see,
is the-
I
that is
think the
one
contention,
voter.
Isaac,
It doesn't
Isaac,
matter.
One person
It doesn't matter.
is 3 people.
Isaac, the contention is the amount of resources,
when I check the history,
regardless
of
of
the
where
Republic,
we are.
you know, when I-
Regardless
when
of
I
where
check
we
the
are.
history
That's
of
the
the
contention.
Republic,
We have
these
to take a
places which have low population, and Isaac thinks that they're getting more share.
Yes,
of
or
revenue
equal,
share.
yes.
When I read the history of the country, at the independence time, they wanted to go to another country. This country went to war to make sure that that part of that country remains in this country.
But it
What are you
doesn't
talking
mean,
about,
but it doesn't mean that
Why
they
don't you
should-
leave them
it
alone to
doesn't
go?
mean
We
they
are
should
actually
inflate their
not even
population
saying-
to deny us of the resources.
I think-
That is
I
intimidation.
think the-
And that's
the
what we are
case-
saying.
the
We
case
cannot
we
allow.
want to
go.
And
Alright.
you
To
intimidate us
reclaim
because you-
that land.
No, no, no.
Alright,
To
Isaac,
I
reclaim
mean,
that
Junet,
you cannot
that's okay,
call,
Alice.
you cannot come on national television and threaten people with war.
No, I'm saying this country went to
And that
war.
is not what is going
No,
to
I'm
make
not
our
saying
people to
this.
suffer, Junet,
Listen,
because they've
Bala.
been threatened.
No,
We
listen.
will not have people,
Listen,
one
listen.
person,
Mwaura, listen.
one woman having 3 women,
Mwaura.
3 men as husbands.
Mwaura, listen, you see,
know,
what
we
I'm
need to
telling
take a
you
break,
is
Junet.
not that
We-
there's,
we-
no, I'm
Alice,
not
also,
saying,
Junet
I'm not
have
saying
to
there
take
is
a
war
break.
now.
Yes.
I'm telling you, when they wanted to go to another country, this country went to war
wanted?
to
We
reclaim
are
the
going
people
to
of that
have a
place.
census
Alright.
That place
biometrically.
they're saying they are
We will not
less
allow people
populated.
here
Isaac,
to-
we
And
need to
Mwaura,
take a
listen.
break.
And we will not allow
Junet-
people to be chased
Junet
from
and
the
Isaac.
region
Mwaura, listen.
so that you can infect
Can
population.
Junet first agree
Junet and
that
Alice,
the
Mwaura,
census-
I have to take a break. I
No,
have to
no.
take.
Can
Junet,
we
I have
first
to take a
agree
break.
No, it's
that
We
the
will
last
agree
census
next.
was wrong?
Yes,
It
it
was
was
wrong.
wrong.
Yes.
We
Which
know.
census?
We know.
The last census was
Not
wrong.
everywhere.
Yeah.
We're taking
How?
a break. Let's
But
take a
it is
look at
already-
something.
It was taken to court.
The figures
The court
are-
said, which way?
And welcome back to Sidebar. This is the last leg, and we'll be discussing, we'll finish that discussion and trying to talk about the maize scandal and the unraveling realities that are now facing the CS agriculture. Magi Kunjore shortly. But first, let's go back to this discussion. And the agreement is that some of the formulas that were used by the Mount Kenya representatives, some of them were not really explicit for Kenyans to understand. We try to debunk that. For example, the 35% contributing to the labor force, it's not real. The 60% contributing to the GDP, it cannot be real. I don't think it's possible, but my guests say that it's very possible. All right, let me go to Junet, because you wanted to put a case forward.
The case I want to put forward before we went off air is this census that we did last time. It was done properly. It went to court. People went to court. The court affirmed it and said that it was done properly. And there is no cause for alarm. We are going to have another census next year, 2019, because we normally have census after every 10 years. So Mwaura, if you think you have many more people, produce them that time, bring them. But what I know, that the people you are claiming that their numbers are fake, each one of them has 3 or 4 wives, minimum. It's not like you. Who, when he gets 2 kids, he thinks God will not give him food to feed those children.
I'm disputing the other way around. In Mandela, I'm mentioning Mandela.
No, those are fake news.
You know, no, it was fake. I was with Oparanya when he was releasing these results.
These are Muslims. There's no way one woman can have 3 husbands.
Exactly. That is why the figures.
In terms of statistics.
Yes.
In terms of statistics, not reality.
It's not, and in fact, even in terms of population growth, there is no way that population would have grown.
Can you bring the facts on the table here?
I will bring the 2009 census. It's very clear. It was a public issue, and they conveniently took the matter before Justice Wasarme, who fixed the judgment in their favor.
No.
How do you?
Don't generalize judges.
No,
how many cases go before different
Justice
judges of different
Wasarme
communities? So that
ruled in favor of that region, and they are getting the resources unfairly.
If you take your matter now before a judge in Ruiru, who comes from Ruiru, we will say that the judge is from your place.
He could have well favor he could have
it was a bench of 3.
He could have actually favor my position just to prove a point.
It was a bench
just
of
like Odunga was dungaring every other decision around the elections.
Now Odunga was bad during the elections. When he gave our allowances, he was good.
Actually, I don't know about allowance. What I would say is,
let me tell you something.
Junet is forgetting.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
By the way, Junet, which region do you represent? Are you from Migori?
We have to let Junet finish.
You know, when you are in the National Assembly, you represent national issues and interest. You don't represent your village like you in Githunguri or somewhere. We represent national interest in the National Assembly. So I can speak even for Githunguri if I want. I can speak for even Muranga if I want, because I represent national interest. But you see, the judges that made that decision were 3 bench. It was a 3 bench judges, not 1 judge. First, you have to tell Kenyans the truth. But now there is another census coming in September next year. So what is the problem? If you have more numbers, including the trees I told you in Aberdare Forest, bring them out.
I think we'll make sure that we'll not have polyandrous women in Mandera County.
Okay, Alice, now you can make your point.
You know, I wanted Junet to first reflect on what we are talking about here. And I'll go back. I said the issue of representation is very key. But it is the population that should be the dominant index.
Exactly.
While resource allocation is being determined.
That's being subjective.
Then the no, I'm not. Because,
no,
I mean, you are giving money to the people.
There's a formula.
It is a formula. That formula is the formula we are talking about. Can I finish? It is the formula we are talking about now by CRA that now needs to be looked at again. Is it because we are also talking about
that's a good point.
We need to look at whether that formula actually works. Is it equity? Is it equitable? Does
actually,
it
my
serve?
colleague Kennedy Muredi spoke to one of the commissioners who admitted that formula is flawed. That formula has a problem.
And it has a problem because it put more weight on the landmass, on equitable sharing without looking at the numbers that people represent or the numbers from specific regions. And it's true we need to also allocate money because of the landmass. But then that cannot be the main issue. The issue of poverty index now needs to go down because there is also equalization fund. You cannot give the same region equalization fund, then CDF, you give them 3 times what I have. Then finally, when you now come to revenue allocation, again, you do the same. And finally, you come to census.
They are Kenyans.
They are not Kenyans more than other Kenyans.
No, but those are the ones who are asking for
it. And by the way, Junet, if you are not careful, the people you represent are suffering from the same challenges.
No.
Yes,
you see,
the
let
same
me tell you
challenges.
something.
By way of
there is law in place that gives us the formula to share revenue in this country.
Yes.
When I checked in Parliament on how to share even the equalization fund, initially the intention of the Constitution was to give that money to marginalized counties as they were known by then. But now the law has been changed. There is a location in Githunguri that will get that money.
No, there isn't.
Ask me, Bana. You're in the Senate.
Let me tell you, the Senate is the one that is doing the marginalization policy. Junet, don't misrepresent the people. The only 2 locations are found in Tharaka-Nithi. We tried to make sure we could even get it there. It did not work.
No, it is coming.
It's not coming. It's not coming. In fact, no, hapana. Usidanganye watu kwa sababu.
So the revenue formula has been changed.
Marginalization is not.
Isaac, I will not
listen because marginalization is not a precept of certain regions.
You know, these
People are
you know
marginalized.
these guys, the one who destroyed our elections in Kasarani.
No, it's okay. I will also destroy your argument when you try to mislead people in national television.
Okay.
No,
let Junet speak, then we can discount
The
what he's
law,
saying.
the CRA, the Commission on Revenue Allocation, has changed the formula. They have put
They
into
have
that
put-
formula
they are adding.
other places that were never considered to be historically marginalized. There are places in Nyatike, there are places in other Pokot, there are places even in Wasingishu, places which have low rainfall. Now, it is coming, it is out. Members of parliament even raised it. Members of parliament from the historically marginalized counties raised it in parliament that why is this formula being changed? So that other parts can get a share of the equalization fund.
No, they were.
Now, let me tell you something.
I think let me respond
Let me
about
tell you
the
something.
equalization
Let me
fund.
tell you something.
Let me talk about
As much as I support
Yes.
the Mount Kenya caucus to do their demands and to bring out the issues that are affecting them, they should not also be seen to be doing it so that they can marginalize other people also. They should be seen like people who are asking things which are of their right. Things that they,
I
don't
think
talk about
what-
this one
what
didn't get,
we
this one
do
didn't get.
when we go to elections and when we are talking about the country, politics is the art of the possible. It's about sharing of scarce resources. I am very proud to say this here, that I voted against a formula that Latin elite brought in the 11th Parliament, where the equalization fund was supposed to be divided amongst constituencies.
About 13 or 14.
Yeah, 14, but the constituency is there, Mheshimiwa Alice will remember, where members, like my good friend Dirie, was supposed to get over 300 million extra. I'm happy it never went through, and I'm very glad Kiambu County without Ndeya would benefit. But this marginalization policy that has gone sub-location, Ken, is identifying pockets of marginalization within an area that, for example, would be thought to be rich in very many issues. And these are people who are poor. These regions are not just domiciled in one part of the country. This idea of thinking that you are the only people in the margins. There are people in the margins, even there is urban poverty here in Nairobi. We must reach out to everybody. And we cannot say that when other people demand for their resources, they are marginalizing others. All what we are trying to say
No,
is
he
this.
said we should not fall at the risk of that.
We are not going
Yeah.
to fall
Yes.
at the risk because we are going to have a formula that is acceptable, that is fair.
So what
we
we're
will not
asking
keep-
for, we need to conclude the discussion. What we're asking for, I agree with Alice, what we're asking for is a relook at this formula.
we interrogate it,
And
yeah.
one of the things you're proposing is it should be based on population, not the
Yes.
major, but
One.
first.
One
yes,
is
the
population,
first.
the other one is health.
Yes.
Is very important.
What else?
The other one is development index.
Yes.
You see?
Public health, you mean?
Yeah, Health
Generally.
health burden. Because if
health
you look
burden.
at the counties,
Yes.
majority of the monies are going to service hospitals. In fact, one of the challenges we are having when we're coming to the ward fund is because when you take money to the ward fund, we are taking money like Embu County. Let me give you an example. Almost 80% of the development money is going to service the Embu County Hospital.
Okay.
So health is a key component so that people can get good services. But the issue about where you almost equate population and landmass, that is totally unacceptable.
Okay.
And of course,
All right.
poverty index.
Poverty index.
Yes.
All right.
And equal share, like an equal amount, so that regardless of all these things we are saying,
Then do you-
there is a certain percentage that will go.
Then do you
Yes.
agree now this is a conversation that gets out of political caucuses and regional caucuses
To the Senate.
national
Yes,
level,
to the
to the
Senate.
Senate?
Yes, yes,
You
yes.
agree with that?
Definitely.
All right.
And
Of course,
also-
we look at the law,
And even-
then which means Junet can come with his contribution.
Exactly.
Any
Okay,
other
everyone.
caucus can.
I
And we can even be allies.
Sorted.
No, you
Junet.
see,
Yes.
I agree with the issue of looking at the law. If they think the law is the one that's making them not get their fair share. But this law was also passed by parliament. And that parliament, they were representatives from all over the country. It was not passed by certain part of the country, or it was not tailor-made for certain part of the country.
I'll be
took
I'll be told
responsibility.
next that
Now,
it was a give and take.
yeah,
That's what I'm about to hear.
secondly-
Also, that parliament
sec-
is skewed
secondly-
in terms of the number of
I- I-
MPs.
Secondly, we
Yes.
just need,
Yes.
before we go far,
So parliament
we
is
just
not a
need to
panacea.
do an audit of projects that were launched in the last 4 years or 5 years.
In that region or all over the
All over
nation?
the country.
Yeah,
And you will
that's-
realize
Yes.
there are regions in this country which have not seen any launching by either
Launching is not the issue.
president or the Tangatanga group.
We also need to look
None
at
of
the
them
amount
have
of
launched
money
anything.
going to this
Isaac,
region
can
per
one
capita.
person speak? Yes.
Yeah.
You see,
Yes,
We
it's
are
not
there's
just
a
actually-
group
launching
of theirs
projects.
that goes tangatangering in the country every weekend.
Ken,
They never launch anything
Ken,
in my
This
place.
team of our region, we are also going to do national audit ourselves of the projects that the government has launched. Not just this government, the last government, and
She's
even the
independent.
Mwai
The
Kibaki.
successive
Yes.
Even
government.
independence,
When you
very
talk about
independent.
the successive government, I have a friend who's just telling me most of the regions, like you look at the area that we're talking about right now, got a lot of development because those are the areas that we know about Mau Mau. Those are the areas that there were settlers, and of course they came with development in those areas. Other areas such as the coast where we did not have colonization or those colonies settling, they didn't have as much
You know that is
development.
a
So
fallacy.
Isaac, if we
fallacy.
start looking
Let me
at
give
this,
you Ken.
yeah.
Ken, these are
Other
fallacies.
Magugu,
Yes.
Other Magugu, by rural constituency Githunguri, when he was minister, he tarmacked the whole of the constituency. He really tried. They give it to him. He is now late. But those roads are no more. So you cannot tell us things that were built in colonial times.
You know
I mean, that
also-
is why you're talking about
you know
modern
also,
marginalization.
I think
because currently, as we speak, these same people who, those settlers are no longer, I mean, the colonialists
they
left over 60 years ago.
They left some developments
They-
like
no,
schools. We
you
have
cannot talk about development that is
majority-
obsolete.
Mwaura,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
Ken
Okay.
is talking about schools. May I say that
Hospitals.
maybe
And the
population is not the same.
80% of our schools have been built by the people from our pockets,
Exactly.
by Harambe.
Not
Okay.
the Muzungu.
that was an
government.
observation. That was an observation
Oh,
with,
yes.
by the way, someone from that area
see.
who was just trying to
He
tell
doesn't
me.
know.
No,
maybe
he doesn't
stays
understand.
in
He's
Nairobi.
just,
He
just
stays
buying
in
the
Nairobi.
lives.
You
eh?
see,
We have to
Isaac
marginalize what-
Mwaura is talking about roads that were tarmacked and now are dilapidated, and they want
You
them
don't
to
have
be done.
the roads.
We don't have the roads. We have not even seen the ones which are dilapidated. We have not seen them.
In your area,
I have
that
not
is-
seen Bana.
But it doesn't mean that
Have not
ours
seen.
should not be repaired.
No,
Because
we
he's
should
not
then
saying-
ask. No, start with the mine.
What
then we
devolution?
do
No,
yours.
we cannot start with yours so that we can work on mine.
Okay. Gentlemen and lady, I want to talk about something else. Let's play this soundbite.
We have complied with this directive. As you all know, I have been directed by the President, who is disappointed, to take the necessary action. I am equally frustrated and disappointed by the manner and pace in which this matter has proceeded. I therefore urge, I wish I can direct them, EACC and DCIO to expedite this process in compliance with the President's directive so that the matter can be unruffled.
All right. The reason why I brought the CS Agriculture into this is because there's also a concern about the performance of some of the CSS from that region, right? In terms of even what they do in the national government. What we are forgetting again is this meant to be national representatives or leaders for the whole country. Yes, not
Some
only your
minister in
area.
the cabinet,
Yes,
yes.
but when you mention from
The
your
names.
region specifically, why would you go in that direction?
First and foremost, I don't think we are talking about inefficiency or lack of, MPs not, cabinet secretaries not performing only from our region.
Okay.
There are quite a number of cabinet ministers that even the president himself, who is the appointing authority, has expressed disappointment in terms of and the manner of delivery of services. And therefore, but they will be complaining that I have a minister or we have a minister in our region. Why? Because that minister would be seen to be coming from a specific region. That region
No, we also
should
have
be
to.
benefiting.
We also have to.
So therefore, if I cannot reach the minister in Kandara or in Muranga, how then will I reach a minister who feels that maybe they come from another
Another
region?
region,
Yeah,
okay.
so I think it's practical.
Wholesome.
Yeah,
I see it.
wholesome,
I see
but
it. Yeah.
generally they are supposed to look at the policy direct for the whole country. But still, they must know that they have been appointed, as we said, from a specific region. Yes, because we have talked about regional balancing. Why do we need to do? These are resources.
Okay.
Appointments, jobs are resources. So those resources should mean something.
Even to the areas they come from.
But also elsewhere. And then we
I
are,
think really, all of us as parliamentarians here will agree that maybe it would have been better, even if it's half the cabinet should have come from parliament. Because there is a way in which members of parliament, both in the National Assembly and the Senate, have touch with the people. Can this idea of having, bureaucrats who feel very grateful.
Technocrats.
Yeah, technocrats, that they feel very grateful they have made it to the cabinet table, and then they just speak good English without delivery, is a problem. We need to relook at that issue if we are to unpackage some of these issues, because we would want to have a situation, because politics helps you to know the art of working with people. So that disconnect, where you really, when you go to look for votes, and then other people get appointed to implement, PSS can do that job, in my opinion. However, really we would want also to have conversations with these cabinet secretaries from the regions and hear what are their challenges. I must accept that there has been some kind of disconnect between the politicians and the technocrats. That is something we are willing as a caucus to work on. Okay. And also to really say that we are fully aware that we must share the national cake. It's not just our own region. But even that little one is not coming. And we are not even talking about tomorrow. We are very keen on ensuring that these years who have been heretofore appointed by His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta help him to fulfill his Big Four agenda and also his legacy. And their specific role, when he gave them the appointment, he told them, if you feel you are tired, just step aside. Because how can you explain about Akaro Jebiji, if I had it correctly, supplying over 200,000 bags of maize? And by the way, when you're talking about that, it's not just about maybe the Mount Kenya region. We're also talking about the farmers in Rift Valley who still voted for President Uhuru. People are disaffected. How do you explain about the issue of importing, things that are hurting the local production and manufacturing? How do you explain the lack of, business issues being well done by somebody like Jiraini, and he knows very well these are the things that are affecting our people in Yambakemba who are doing business, our people in the Githurai, who, for example, right now, have all their stores have been demolished, and on the basis that they want to create, I don't know what they are. All this kind of hostility, where people now feel the same government that they voted for is turning against them. These are some of the things that we would want to talk about, but I would want to still emphasize there is a value in political acumen that comes with you interacting with voters, seeking for votes, and hearing their conversation and being their representative.
Okay, and that conversation just takes us straight to the conversation in the country, which is a referendum, which we're not having today. But for you even to observe that we need members of parliament in the cabinet, that's where that conversation on referendum. But your views on the fact that they are singling out cabinet secretaries
from our region,
from their region, and talking about them more than looking at the larger picture, the bigger picture.
No, it's okay if they want to talk to the cabinet secretary from the region, but they must also know at the back of their mind that cabinet secretaries are appointed to serve the whole country. The issues that affect people in other regions that those cabinet secretaries are supposed to attend to.
Okay.
But the issue of maize, is the staple, ugali is the staple food of the country. And agriculture is the backbone of this economy. If it's not addressed, then that means we are going to have a lot of problems. And the president has given directives. He has talked about it many times. We need to see results now. We need to see things moving forward. We need to see that matter resolved once and for all. And it has been recurring for many years, the maize issue. It is a time it is dealt with once
decisively.
Or decisively.
Ken, before you conclude, on the question of a cabinet secretary coming out from being appointed outside parliament, there is a problem in terms of a government that wants to also remain relevant and be seen by the people that actually voted for that government because they believed in their agenda. Is that they are not able to connect. The people connect with people they have. The voters, Mwananchi, connect with the people they have elected.
Some argue it improves accountability also.
It does it actually. It has proven not to.
There is a difference because they connect differently, and the cabinet secretary, because they feel they are technocrats, I think reaching to Mwananchi at the ground and explaining the government policy is a challenge. And some of them are actually afraid of crowds and the people.
They don't have
All right.
There is a problem.
The flair the politicians have.
Yeah, but now what I'm seeing is that they are getting in agreement with us that we need a referendum. From the issues they are raising.
Actually, Ken,
the issues they are raising.
The CSS who have been
but how do you change the
have
constitution?
performed much better than the ones that are not.
Which formula?
Somehow. They are more vocal, they are more visible.
Yeah, so they have agreed that
there's need for referendum.
There is need to review the constitution.
We postponed that debate in Naivasha, and that we will have it at the right time.
No, they are just saying that there is need to review the constitution.
The constitution,
and that can lead to a referendum.
Yes.
We are not interested in a referendum to create jobs. We are interested in a referendum to fix the problem if there is a problem.
Okay.
But you have just talked about problems in the constitution that she's saying cabinet
that
secretaries
can only be fixed by a referendum.
She's saying cabinet secretaries. You can't contradict yourself on the same table you're sitting.
No.
She said
okay.
We are very much interested in uniting the country. We are very much interested in making sure that President Uhuru secures his legacy and leaves this country as one.
I see that also as a double speak sort
That's
of.
another debate, and that's what everybody
because that's
but
something we've been discussing here, and I've seen your views.
I think that is part of our
So
statement
let
that
me
we
conclude
made.
this. I want to say that
We're not ending. I'll give you an opportunity to end. We're not ending. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we always have a segment also called Toon Side, where we bring a cartoon of the week. And this is a cartoon by Gado. I want you to take a look at it and tell me what you think about it. Right, that looks like someone just from school. He says, any government that values crooked graduates who swindle maize than honest graduates who roast maize should be ashamed of itself. I'll start with Isaac, your view of that cartoon.
I think I really like it. It's very honest, it's very candid, and that actually underpins how Kenyans vote. Actually, Kenyans choose to vote for thieves rather than Jesus on the cross. Has become our culture. In fact, when you stand out for what is right, you're not likely to go anywhere in this country, because you look at people who are roasting maize, they are honestly earning a living. They are the same people whose stores are being demolished. They are the ones who are being chased away. So that, like in Githurai, for example, a Chinese is coming to invest 2.7 billion under PPP so that he can recoup his money. And the poor people who build the Githurai economy are the ones who are going to suffer. Let me tell you, Ken, I have been brought up in Githurai. That is where I have grown up in. I am a product of those small traders there. And when we were looking for votes, we asked them to go and show us the next polling station, if it's St. Augustine, Dios Place, or wherever. Today, people are being told, can you look at your ID and go back home, where there is no land, there is no nothing. So really, this cartoon is really a depiction of what is the true nature of our system in this country.
Okay. Junet.
I think the cartoon is just giving the really scenario in the country, because there are graduates that cannot get jobs. The rate of unemployment in our country is very high. So you cannot castigate him for roasting maize so that he can make a living out of it. And it's ironical that the person who's castigating him is a very rich hustler, who's saying that you cannot produce graduates who will roast maize. But we produce graduates who have done many other bad things. It's better even the one who's eating his sweat by roasting maize.
Okay.
So the cartoon is spot on.
Okay.
You have gone through secondary and university education. Through the whole of that process, of course, you are expecting maybe a white-collar job. But you see, graduates must change their perspective, must change their attitude. I think the cartoon is trying to say that you don't really have to roast me, because you're supposed to also be creating jobs. There is a lot of investment on you as a graduate compared to somebody who left school at maybe standard 8. When you roast maize, it is only your job. A graduate can create a job by simply getting a desk into his office or into their house and start thinking of how to create jobs. Because if we are expecting the government to create jobs for all of us, I think that's where we are failing. So for me, I think it is challenging graduates to start looking at themselves as job creators instead of being job seekers.
Right, different interpretation of the same cartoon. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a few minutes on the clock. I'd give you an opportunity to close this. And where do we begin? Let me begin with Isaac. Just summarize everything. And I've just gotten someone who has been very graceful on Facebook, on Twitter, to send me this. He says the basis of revenue sharing among the counties, for my information, 2016, 17, 18, 19, is parameters and percentages. Population 45%, equal share 26%, poverty 18%, land area 8%, fiscal efforts 2%, and development factor 1%. I'm just looking at it from, I don't know where this extract is.
And I don't see anything to change there.
Okay. You don't see anything to change in this formula of revenue sharing. So I'll give you an opportunity now to summarize.
45% of population.
Yes.
I think 45% population should even be 90%, because that is you represent people, and people are the ones who generate these resources. Let me say, we are really sad because of if you look at that same formula we are talking about, one of the factors is incentive for fiscal responsibility. And in terms of also revenue. By the way, I'm the vice chairman of the Finance and Budget Committee of Senate. It's good to declare that. And I am very sad because Kiambu County, for example, was not able to collect about 400 million in the current financial year. And so therefore we have missed another 600 million. And that means we have lost a whole 1 billion in terms of money that would have gone to build roads, to strengthen our health systems and what have you. So really we need to be very careful with regards to counties and how they are generating their own revenue, because this impinges on how much also comes from their ordinary shareable revenue. So really, that is where the problem is. So if you do not collect enough, you are actually disadvantaging your people, you are actually relegating them to poverty. But unfortunately, we elected somebody from Nairobi who just came to Kiambu to tour.
Okay, good ending.
I think we need to look at this issue of revenue sharing in a broader manner, in a broader perspective, and not in a narrow way that can disadvantage other people. And as I've said earlier, every caucus must continue, every caucus must fight for their rights, every caucus must come out to tell what the people need as people who represent them. That we will support 100%. The Mount Kenya, I support them, and they should even be more stronger, because they look like people who have just come out of slumber now. People have just come to town now asking, are we caucus or are we what? So it is better now they continue caucusing and come up in a proper manner, but they should be very careful also the broader politics of the country, so that they should not be seen as people who are coming out to disenfranchise other groups.
Okay. That should not be the ultimate aim.
I think Junet should not give us a prescription, because we have not bothered to give him a prescription as to how they caucus. So we shall caucus in the best interest of the people we represent, the best interest of our region, noting and minding, concerned that whatever we discuss then fits within the national discussion, the national arena, and therefore nobody should be worried that the region is meeting, because we are also responsible in terms of the issues that we are discussing on the table.
And Junet should invite us
but,
to their
But
role.
we will be modest.
Okay.
I agree, and I declare we'll be modest, but we're not going to be apologetic to anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that has been made quite clear, and I think you've come out, and Kenyans have been watching this debate, and especially the fact that you belong to that, the two of you belong to that caucus group. I think now they can judge for themselves why it is necessary, and of course they've had. I'm going to look at a few of the feedback right now, and I've just received a message also from one of the members of parliament from Junet's county, that's Tom Odege, who wanted to know why 70% of the tarmac roads are in Kalenjin and Kikuyu land also. I don't know how he arrived at that. There's a question from Odege. I think we'll have another forum to discuss that, right?
But Tom Odege is a unionist, and I respect him a lot. And we will work with
you
him.
want us to go into answering that?
He's a unionist. I respect him a lot, and I think we will discuss these matters
when you meet over tea in Parliament.
You're just asking for an audit.
Yes, of the roads.
Of the roads.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But
all
right.
We
can go into that, Alice.
No, we will not go.
We cannot go
and
talk about that.
There's a statement I made earlier. I said, look at the roads that were done or were launched the other day. You know what Mwaura told me? Launching is different from doing.
Exactly.
This was being launched as
Sometimes some of them are empty promises.
Isaac,
Not all roads.
we have ended. Thank
Exactly.
you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's look at some of the feedback. We know we've been receiving a lot of feedback, but we're not able to look at all of them. Lefa Rakoren says, central leaders crying about marginalization. I, being born in Marsabit, isn't a Kenyan. Then I saw one also talking about if they're complaining, what about us in Turkana? So leaders from Mount Kenya region should never meet or talk about their people. Sidebar, I support the leaders from the central area. The area is lagging behind in development at the expense of other places. All right, he agrees with you. And Abdurashid Abdullahi says, someone tell Mwaura that resource allocation is not about members or number of votes cast in favor of the government, but on need basis. That's from Abdurashid.
But there is need.
And Waidaka Kamau says, we are still struggling to find out why, when Mount Kenya leaders come together, there's always uproar all over the country. Aren't we supposed to have our leaders speaking in one voice? He agrees with both of you, right?
Yes.
All right, those are some of them, but quite a number on my feed, quite a number of the feedback. We'll try and look at them. But before then, let's go to this last segment. Finally, some people feel it's nothing to celebrate about, but let the proud Kenyans be just that. Now, yesterday, early afternoon local time and early morning New York time, Kenya Airways made history by becoming the first commercial airline in the region to land on the American soil in a non-stop flight that took 15 hours. Well, this is seen as a great achievement. With the opening of the airspace that was 10 years in the making, it began back in 2008. the opportunities that come with it. Dinner in Nairobi, breakfast in New York, the exports, the imports, the passenger movement and all. Well, this is not the only time Kenya has shown in the region and globally. Let's remind you of a few instances. 41 years ago, that's February 4th, 1977, KQ's maiden flight from London's Heathrow touched down at the then Nairobi's Embakasi Airport, now JKIA. That was 10 months since the inception of Kenya Airways, which at that time boasted of a fleet that included jumbo Boeing 747. Most of them are now out of service. That the 747 was beat then. The ones that look like the Air Force One, that's the 747, you know, if you don't know how it looks like. Well, now the technology is more advanced and KQ now has the Dreamliner. Now, the Dreamliner 787 in its fleet, making the maiden non-stop flight to JFK possible. The other remarkable feat that has put Kenyans on the map includes, let's see, this is November 2006, when a panel of experts declared the annual wildebeest migration that begins at Serengeti and ends at the Masai Mara, one of the 7 new wonders of the world. Then there is also October 2009, when M-Pesa went global and it became possible for Kenyans to send and receive money to the United Kingdom through Safaricom's M-Pesa. That was the company's first commercial cross-border transfer service, and not to forget that. All right, that's a good place to end tonight's show. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing your views with us, and Kenyans for watching. We'll do this again next week on Tuesday, and thanks to my crew. Have a good night.